So this is a speaker meeting, and our speaker tonight, he's been very inspirational to me, whether he knows it or not. And he will share his experience, strength, and hope for 45 minutes. Please help me introduce Nate.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the group for asking me to come and do this. I never know what I'm going to say up here, but here we go. And hello to everybody out there in Skype world, Zoom world. My name's Nate. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 15th of 2008. That puts me at 12 years of sobriety. Go ahead. And clapping for yourselves, because none of this up here and the man I am today is because of anything how I see it. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous a completely broken man, completely at the end of my rope, and I had no clue what was wrong with me. I had no idea. All I knew is that I couldn't stop drinking. I was brought up in a small town outside of Madison, Wisconsin. And there, I don't know if anybody's ever been to Wisconsin, but people like to drink in Wisconsin. So I fit in just wonderfully there, right? The only problem is when time went on, people were getting up for work. I wasn't. People were making their own way. I wasn't. People were able to not wake up and shake, and I wasn't. And it didn't go right there. It was humble beginnings. I started out, smoking a little grass or drinking. I said grass. That's awesome. Drinking or doing whatever, on the weekends here and there. And then slowly it just became a working part of my life. But I remember the first time that I drank alcohol, and that thing that we talk about here, happened for me. I always felt like an outsider because I was always an outsider in my own mind. In my own mind, I didn't fit into society, and I knew it. But the second I put alcohol to my lips is the second that I became a part of, right? And I felt like I could, talk to you, right? Having a conversation with somebody is like, terrifying for somebody like me sober. I don't like it. It's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I don't fucking know, Sorry, I'll try not to curse. But once I had alcohol, I was cool. I was the man, When I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor put it to me like this. He said, there's a keg in one corner and a girl in the other corner. Which one do you go to first? And I'm pretty sure that all of you can answer, I go to the keg first, so then I can go talk to the girl. And that's what alcohol did for me. Alcohol made it so that I was cool, I could talk to you, I was good looking when I was drunk, all these things, right? And so I made a deal. I was like, I'm going to do this as often as I possibly can until the wheels fall off, right? I didn't know the wheels were going to fall off. I didn't know that there's this thing called the progression of alcoholism. I didn't know that things were going to get worse, So much has happened. So much has happened. My last birthday was the year of sobriety that I drank for as long as I was sober. Wait, yeah, that's right. So I was sober as long as I drank, right? So I've been sober now as long as I was out there drinking. And in that 12 years, some crazy shit's happened that I've stayed sober through that you're going to hear about. But back to my story, and it got worse, like it always does. I start stealing, lifting money out of my parents' wallets and, stuff like that, things we do to get loaded on a daily basis, you know. And then it slowly gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. And along the line, somewhere, I'm not exactly sure when it happened, but I completely lost the power of choice in drink. And it wasn't about, if I wanted to drink anymore. It was, I'm drinking. If I'm awake, I'm drinking, right? Consequences happened like they always do to us. I'm hurting people around me. Don't care really. I want to act like I care because I think that like you feel a little bit better than if I act like I care, right? But I'm just acting like I care that you're sad that I'm killing myself and that I'm hurting you, and every girlfriend I ever had that I'm cheating on, and just being not a nice guy. And I'm getting DUIs. I'm getting thrown in jail. I'm getting out of jail. I'm swearing off alcohol forever while I'm in jail because jail sucks. It's not a fun place to be at all. And you're in jail and you're like, things are going to be different, right? And of course, who would I call to pick me up from jail? Like my best drinking buddy. You know what I mean? Because I know he's going to the liquor store. And I know that I'm going to the liquor store with him. And I know that I'm drinking. And I know I don't have a choice. And so things transpired. I'd like to say that cool stuff happened. It didn't, I'm going to tell you straight up though, drinking was fun for a while until it wasn't. I did have some good times until it wasn't good anymore, but things are progressing, and at this point in time, I somehow, I grew up in the age of no student left behind. So they pushed me through school. I remember my freshman year, I had a .953 GPA because I just didn't go to school, because I had better things to do, like drink and do other things that we do, some of us. And so they pushed me through, got through high school, didn't really do much at all. I got a job at a gas station. They gave me school credit for it. So I graduated high school and I took the beer out the back door at the gas station. It was perfect. You know what I mean? But I would say that, somewhere in that time frame, things became significantly worse. I started to notice that I was somewhere along the line, I figured out that if you just keep drinking, you never get hungover, right? So I'd wake up in the morning and I'd just continue drinking. And then that turned into a day, month, year, few years of just drinking around the clock. And, if you put your body through, some of you in here know what happens when you're literally drinking when your eyes are open and you're not passed out. Is terrible things start happening to your body. You start shaking, you start having delusions, you can't eat. Well, in my case, I couldn't eat anything because I'd throw it right back up. And I got to the point in my drinking where my 80 proof vodka wasn't strong enough to keep it in my belly in the morning when I woke up from being passed out. And I'd throw it back up into a glass and I'd drink it again because I'm not wasting alcohol, right? And I'm living by myself in a little tiny apartment because at this point in my life, y'all are trying to tell me how to drink and it's not going to happen. It's just not. And actually, looking back on it, that was one of the best things that I ever did for myself, was that at one point in time in my drinking, I cut all my anchors. I cut all the people out of my life that were trying to tell me how to drink and live my life. And what that did for me is it gave a chance for alcohol to beat me into a state of reasonableness. And it got me to a point where I was willing to do whatever it takes, right? At this point in time, I'm so sick that if I sleep too long, I can't keep alcohol down, so I'm forced to detox myself on the couch. And, I'm shaking and sweating and all kinds of bodily functions in every direction. And I have to be like that until I can get some more alcohol in my body. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit because I got stuff that I need to talk about sober too. Anyways, this goes on for a while. I'm checking myself into these detoxes over and over and over again. And because I'm swearing off forever, right? I'm going to go into this detox. Things are going to be different. I'm going to get out and it's going to be fine. And this wasn't a nice detox. This was like a detox where you go where they take the people who they find passed out on the street and, throw them in there. And they throw me in this little room cell and they just let you just buck until... I remember the test they had was they'd make you stick out your tongue, and if your tongue wasn't shaking anymore, you were good to be discharged. That was the test they had at this particular detox that I was at. And so things happen. I keep drinking every time I get out of detox. I visit you guys a couple times, but I'm just not ready to listen to you. I can't hear it, right? I don't know. I think I'm different, right? The big thing with alcoholics is that I'm somehow different than you. So, last time drunk, right? Well, not my last time drunk, but close to my last time drunk. I did one of those things where I passed out on the couch, too long and I couldn't drink, and I actually fell into what I now know is an alcohol psychosis. And I was actually hallucinating, and I didn't know what was really going on. I was making up things in my head, and all I really kind of remember from pieces is that I was half naked outside of this little shitty apartment I had. And, I was looking for my keys in a dumpster, and I didn't know why. I thought I had lost my keys, whatever. And I was somehow walking around Madison. I remember walking around Madison. And these two cops showed up. And they were like, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Man, I'm a really bad alcoholic. And, I'm bad off, So they say, "Okay, you're going," they throw me in the back of the squad car and they send me back to that same detox that I've been. And I knew the intake guy at this point. And I remember walking in the front door, and the intake guy, I can't remember his name for the life of me, and I wish I could. And I've been trying for 12 years to remember this dude's name, and I can't. It's driving me freaking insane. But I walk in, and this guy sees me, and he sees how bad I am. And he goes, "No, that's Nate. He's a real bad alcoholic. He needs to go to the hospital," right? So they load me up in the ambulance, and last thing I remember seeing is the emergency room doors, and I'm back in the ER for the third or fourth time because I had a grand mal seizure. That was pretty normal for me to have seizures. I skipped over a lot of that because time. So this time I'm in the hospital, and they do the thing where they give you all the Ativan and they flush your system with all kinds of things that make you poo out of every direction, and it's awful, right? And somewhere in my Ativan blackout that they had me in, and somebody from somewhere, and again, I don't know who this person is, said, "Hey, do you want to go somewhere?" And I said, "Okay." For whatever reason in that moment, I said, "Okay," and that's not something that I used to do because I've been offered, I knew a little bit about what you guys did. And so I said, "Okay," and then I came out of that Ativan blackout, and my parents were sitting there, and they're like, "You're going to this place called Nova in Oshkosh, Wisconsin for 30 days. And, I don't know why I didn't fight it. I didn't try to tell them, "No, it's different. I'll be fine this time. This was a real wake-up call," which would normally have been my line, "It's going to be different this time, Mom and Dad." But I didn't. I said, "Okay, let's go." Right. Went to that place. It was cool. We played a lot of volleyball and, ate food and, things that you do in treatment, right? But I do remember one thing. I remember walking, this place had this big fucking fireplace thing in it. And I remember walking by the fireplace one day, and I was like, and something said to me, is like, you can't do this by yourself. You got to do something different. And at that point in time, my therapist is like, hey, you know, there's this place out in Prescott, Arizona called New Freedom, and you should go. And again, I said, okay, right? I've learned today, still to this day, at 12 years sober, okay is my word of surrender, right? Whenever I feel myself wrestling with anything, or I feel as though, like, you know, I'm struggling or I'm trying to make something fit into my world, and somebody will say something, and I'll just go, okay. And then everything seems to level out again. But I said okay, and I called up this dude who was running the place at the time, who's still my sponsor to this day. And he said, get on a plane, come on out. So I did. Scariest thing I ever did in my life, you know. Most of you guys in here, I think, are in some sort of treatment center or some sort of halfway house or something like that, and you understand, you know. I mean, for some of you, it's become, you know, normal, which is also really scary, you know. And but some of you know, the first time you walk into treatment, it's not fun. I didn't know any of you. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Thought that I was going to come into more doctors and shit. So I did. I came in and I was blessed. I was placed in a place full of guys that were really serious about staying sober, right? You know, because the truth of the matter is like, at that point in time, you know, I'm one of those chameleon alcoholics, where it's like, I'll be whatever you want me to be as long as I can fit in your world, right? I'm not like that anymore. You can ask a lot of my friends. I'm almost the opposite of that today. But, you know, I'll be whatever you want me to be. So if you know, if I would have walked in and you guys were like, we're going to go do meth and kill somebody, I would have been like, let's go, you know. I'd have been like, yeah, you know, I'm in, let's go. But I didn't. I walked into a group of guys who were real serious about Alcoholics Anonymous, and more importantly, they were members of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today I understand there's a big difference between hanging out in AA and being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Being the guy at the home group, you know, being the guy up here chairing the meetings, being the guy making the coffee, being the guy people know, right? And everybody knew these guys. You know, back then this town was way smaller than it is now. There was like 3 or 4 treatment centers in this town. And so I did. I jumped in and started doing what they were doing. And I just started following them. You know, they'd tell me what to do on a daily basis. They'd be like, you go here, you look for a job over here. Hey, I got, you know, a lead on a job over here. And I'd walk my ass around this town over and over and over and over again. And you guys got to remember, this is in 2008, right after the economy crash, and there were no jobs. And I literally walked around for 30 days trying to find a freaking job, and it was damn near impossible. But I did. I found this job, right, working at a car wash. And it again, saved my life. You know what I mean? And I started doing what you guys told me to do. And I started putting in the action. Right? You guys started to talk to me about these things on the wall, right? And honestly, at that point in time, all I wanted to do was not die. You know, if you could just like keep me from drinking and everything else, you know, that's fine. What happened was so much more. It changed my consciousness. You guys bamboozled me. And it did. It changed the way I view the world. It changed how I love. It changed how I care. It changed how I think. It changed a lot when I came here. But I just had to be willing to do the work. So I got a sponsor, did all the steps, right? You know, got to 9, went and did some amends, and things started to happen for me, right? You guys told me when I came here that if I put Alcoholics Anonymous first in my life, everything that I've ever wanted will come true for me. And that's been my experience today. Everything, that I did, and I took off with Alcoholics Anonymous. My ass was on fire with this thing. I was never turning down an AA request. I was sponsoring tons of dudes, GSR, intergroup rep, all these things. Driving down to Casa Grande in the middle of summer to go sit in a horse barn to do GSR conventions and things, and just loving every minute of it, just loving it. Because I finally found my people, right? When I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, I knew right away I belonged here. There's no way, there's no way I could have denied it. My head will try to tell me otherwise, right? But if I really, really, really pay attention and I focus on the similarities that's going on with you guys, I know that this is where I belong, right? I just have to surrender on a daily basis. So, I'm 10 months sober at this point in time, and I'm just running around being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm sitting in this actually exact room, scanning the room for somebody to fix me. And, there she was, right? You guys have all done it, and you probably did it before this meeting, like, oh, he's cute or she's cute, And it's what it was. It's like, okay, she'll fix it, So I met this, girl meets guy at campus, like it talks about on the 12 and 12, and she became part of my life, and she got sober, and started to sponsor a lot of girls in this town, and I was sponsoring a lot of guys in this town, and we're starting to kind of figure out, what we want to do with our lives and things, all these things. Years go by, and we're like, ooh, maybe we'll do this with our life, or do this with our life, right? And, sitting outside the car wash one day, and I see a fire truck drive by, and I think, that would be a pretty cool job, right? And then I made the biggest mistake ever, and I called up my sponsor and told him that. And then he told me, okay, this is what you got to do this. Boom, 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 boom. Go talk to this guy. Go talk to this guy. Go talk to this guy, right? And I did. And I slowly, I pulled up to the first guy's house, and I'm just like, I'm sitting in the car, and I'm like, because in my head, I'm not good enough, right? I'm just not. I'm not good enough. And my sponsor says that fuck, it's a prayer. And I totally relate to that, because that's what I would do. I'd sit in the car and I'd be like, all right, I gotta go talk to this guy. Fuck it. Boom. And I'd hit the door and, tuck and roll and kind of, slur my words up there and be stuttering and all kinds of stuff. Because I was terrified, man. Because that's what I really am. What I understand today about myself is that when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a frightened child. I was a 25-year-old kid that just didn't have any tools for living whatsoever that were good. Tools for living I had were shitty. But I did, I started slowly working towards this career that I wanted to be in. I'm going to school again, and I'm a terrible student. I told you guys about my GPA. Right, so I started to go to school because these guys are telling me that I need to go to school, and I'm doing okay. I'm getting like B's, which is great for me. It was like the first B I ever had in my life. And, she's doing cool things. She's going to school and whatever, and, we end up getting married, having babies. I got 2 daughters, 6 and 7, today, and what happens is like somewhere around like the 3, 4, 5, 6 mark, when you're sober, you start to want things, right? And you start to want to build a life, and you want the white picket fence and, all this stuff, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having stuff, but I was going about it the wrong way, right? I was making my life about it, because now all of a sudden I got these kids that I got to support. And for anybody out there who has kids, there's this weird thing that happens, at least to me, where all of a sudden you have these kids and you go into this like panic mode of you need to manage and build the best life you can for these kids, right? You want them to have everything that you never had. You want them to have a big ass house. You want, the trampolines in the backyards and the pools and the everything, and you just want everything for them, And what I forgot was that if I just continue to make Alcoholics Anonymous important, that all those things will come true anyways, right? I forgot that. They just don't always happen on my time when I want them to. I don't get the new truck when I want it. I get the truck when it happens, right? So to fast forward a little bit, kids are 2 and 1 at this point. They're only 13 months apart. And this girl, who I was married to, came to me and said, hey, I might have overthought this alcoholism thing. I was pretty young when I got sober, so I think that, I could probably drink like a normal person now if I wanted to. And I looked at her dead in her eyes because I knew her pretty well, and I said, I have never disagreed with anything that you've ever said more in my life. But go ahead, because I had enough information at that point in time that I wasn't going to stop an alcoholic, right? It's like trying to walk in front of a freight train. However, I forgot that later on. So, she did it, and it got bad right away. Drinking and driving with the kids in the car and all kinds of everything that we do, I'm trying to make it work, and in the process, I'm just driving myself absolutely nuts. I'm not around my people because, like I said, I became more enamored with making money and, having everything than I did with sponsoring guys and coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and, being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to go back to that because at this point in my life, I was not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? You would have looked at me, if you would have asked me at that point in my life and hooked me up to a lie detector, I'd have told you straight up, yep, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I would have passed that lie detector. I was not. But the delusion had me, right? And, I stopped going to meetings, and when I did go to meetings, I'd go to one a week, and I'd show up at 5:30, and I'd leave at 6:30, and I wouldn't really talk to anybody. And she's like in and out, going to treatment. I'm sticking around because I'm keep thinking that my sober wife's going to come back, and she's lying, and it's just awful, right? And I went on like that for 3 years. 3 years. Until finally, at about 8 years sober, I was ready to just end it. I was getting to be suicidal in sobriety at 8 years sober. And I couldn't figure out why, right? And I was such a victim at this point in my life. I was such a victim. Everything, was like, you don't deserve this, this isn't, blah, 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 you're a good dad, you're a good husband, you're a good provider, all this internal jib-jab, right? And I couldn't figure out why this was happening to me, right? My current state of agnosticism was high. No God would do this to a guy like me, because I'm such a great guy, right? And finally, I called my sponsor and I said, hey, I'm thinking about ending it. And at this point in time, I'm a single dad. I kind of forgot to mention that part. So pretty much since my kids have been like 1 and 2, I've been a single dad. I'm not anymore. But I pretty much had those kids full time. And that comes with its own challenges, right? So I'm a single dad. I got a career. I'm trying to manage all this, right? And that word is very important. I was trying to manage all this, right? And finally, at 8 years sober, I was ready to end it because in my head, you guys were better off without me. My kids were better off without me. And honestly, I think my kids were the ones that actually somewhat saved me. The only reason I pretty much didn't do it. But I did. I had one surrender in me. And my surrender was to call my sponsor, Rick, and tell him what was going on. And his answer to me was, I'll be right over, And his direction was to me is get back in Alcoholics Anonymous and start going again and start being be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous again, Nate. And I did. And slowly, things started to get better. And I started, and that thing about like none of this can be any useful, because the whole time I'm going through a lot of this, and I forgot to mention, like in the midst of all this, I lost 19 of my coworkers in a fire, and one of them was a really good friend of mine and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so that also happened. And there was also, I was changing jobs to this different department, and it was like it wasn't fitting, and I was trying to fit. I was trying to put this square peg into a round hole, and my dad had like this cancer scare, and there was just a ton, man. It was like a year of just felt like I was just getting my ass kicked, and again, the victim mentality, man, is like, how could this happen to me? I'm such a good guy, right? And then I started coming back around. I started sponsoring guys again. I started becoming a part of, right? And I started to learn things about the whole situation I went through. And I started having guys walking up to me and goes, man, I'm going through a divorce with a girl that's drinking. Can you help me? Right? And and one of the biggest things, and this is going to sound like duh, but it's like, it isn't to us from my experience, like, being a man who's been in Alcoholics Anonymous, who works with a lot of young men, is we continue to go into these relationships that are terrible, and we're getting punched in the face, right? And we leave the room and we come back in and we get punched in the face again, thinking that there's going to be a different outcome. And I just kept doing that over and over and over and over again. I was just getting punched in the face, punched in the face, punched in the face, punched in the face, right? And what I come to learn from that through, my own understanding of God, and this is going to sound really kind of weird to some of you, because the first time I heard it, it sounded really weird to me. My significant other, it is none of my business what they do or don't do. And that one was a hard lesson learned. And it's a truth for me today. It really is. Because one of my biggest things is my expectations, right? What I do have a choice over is what's going on with me. What am I going to do about it? What's my actions? If my ex-wife cheats on me, that's her business. But what I get to choose is whether I stay in that relationship or not, right? That's the only choice I have. That's it. I don't get to try and change her. I don't get to try and make her have an experience, which, trust me, I've done all those things, right? And I've learned. And I think there was this really important period of like where I was getting well, and I was starting to play with my kids again. And I was single, and I wasn't looking, I wasn't doing anything, I wasn't, I did some stupid shit. But, yeah. But for the most part, between these little lapses of judgment that I was having, I started to play with my kids a lot. And we started doing this game where, like, I'd put some change in a cup and I'd hide it in the yard. And I'd draw them a treasure map. And we would do this every night. We did this every night for, like, a whole summer. And, we'd go and I'd draw them the treasure map, and they'd go out using the map and try to find this little treasure, right? And in that moment in my life, I remember what living was like again, because I hadn't felt it in so long, and I didn't know. I had that period of sobriety in my life where I was like, man, like life is so great and everything's a possibility and everything shines, right? I had a lot of periods in my sobriety where things just don't shine, and that's a good indicator to me that I'm not doing well, right? If things that I get excited about, like I like making shit with my hands, I'm like a builder, and like I like to do things like that. And I always got like some project in my head about something that I want to build, right? Whether it's like a piece of furniture or a new shed or something, right? Some new project around the house that I want to do. And I can always tell I'm not doing well spiritually when I don't have something like that in my head, right? Because that's what I really like to do. But anyways, I got to this point where I was like, I was really having fun being a dad, and I was doing it by myself, and I didn't have any need at that point in time for anything external to fix me. And I think that was really important for me to be in any sort of relationship in the future, is to know that I can do it myself, right? And I wasn't doing it myself, is the truth of the matter. Like once I went through my divorce, my parents moved out here to help me out with the kids, and some great people from Alcoholics Anonymous helping me out. But then all of a sudden, there she is. She walks into my life again, and I didn't manage it this time. I didn't make a target. I didn't really, as a matter of fact, I asked her out one time and she was like, no. And I just remember saying, okay, if that changes, let me know. Oh, she was like, the thing was that she was like seeing like some dude sort of, and I walked up to her and I said, you want to go out with me? And she's like, well, I'm kind of seeing somebody. And I was like, well, if that changes, let me know, right? And it did. It changed, and I think that probably told her what kind of guy I was, right? And she's been a blessing. And life gets crazy. Like this year, I had to that woman I was telling you about, who's the mother of my children, overdosed on fentanyl and died about 6 months ago. And even though I had the kids full time, I was still making an effort for her to see them throughout the years. And it was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do in sobriety, was to tell my little girls that their mom's dead. And it was awful. It was like surreal. Like I probably got fucking PTSD from it. But at the same time, it was in a strange way really beautiful. Because we all held each other and we all cried, and we all had really good, healthy conversations about it, and it was unlike anything that I've ever experienced as a child. Because when I'm a child, we bury that shit deep. We don't talk about it. That's the way I was brought up. I'm from the Midwest, so it's like we don't talk about feelings, and you stay married to somebody forever if you're miserable, and you drink a 30-pack of Miller a day, right? That's like the morals that I was taught as a child, right? But you know what? It wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard because I was with you guys, because I had my people. Not once did I think about drinking. Not once. My mom's got cancer real bad right now. Stage 4, she's dying, and it's just incredible how I dealt with things before versus how I deal with things now. Today, I have tools, right? I have Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a way to wipe away the delusion, because that's my biggest thing, is that I live in delusion. And I got one thing to say before I close, and it kind of sums up what the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous did for me. and it's kind of crude, so I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but the way my life looked before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous is I had this big plate of crap, okay? Like literally, talk about human crap, okay? And it's got whipped cream, and it's got sprinkles, and it's got chocolate sauce, and it's got a cherry on top, right? And that's what I was living with. It's this big pile of crap that's covered up with all these excuses as to why I can continue living the way I'm living. And what happened, and I'm eating this stuff, right? Because it looks good. It looks like it's got whipped cream and all that stuff on it, right? And what happened with my 4, 5, 6, right, is you came and you wiped all the delicious toppings off my pile of crap. And now I'm looking at this pile of crap that I've been eating for years and years and years and years, right? And at this point in time, I go, oh, man, I can't believe I've been eating that pile of crap. And so I say, here, God, take this pile of crap. I don't want it anymore. Right? That's always a hit with the younger crowd. The old guys are looking at me like, oh. Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. I'm 100% convinced I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't mean to downplay anything out there, but this is an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this without offending like 4,000 people. Alcoholics Anonymous, for me, is the only thing that I have found that fixes a guy like me. I was a kid who was put on mountains of drugs to fix me because my mom didn't know how to fix me. Put me on mountains of drugs, sent me to 1,000 therapists, sent me to treatment centers, sent me to detoxes, sent me everywhere. And it turned out the whole time, all I needed was to become a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's all I got, thanks.
Get an escort. So let's thank Nate one more time.